Good day, everyone. It's Peter Dunn, Pete the Planner, and this is the Pete the Planner Show. Joining me from his studio in northern Indiana, what some call the Mecca of Indiana, Damian Dunn. Hello, Dame.
I have missed that sound, and by that sound, I mean that little intro music, not your voice.
Oh, yeah, it's a good sound. Dame comes back from vacation. He's made it back in one piece. How was vacation, Dame?
It was great. There was this new trend I wasn't aware of. It turns out swimsuits are cut a little bit differently than what I remembered from the last time I took a vacation. They're kind of cheeky now, if you know what I'm talking about.
Is this a creepy old guy comment?
Well, I am not even going to tell you about what the ladies were wearing.
Hey, now, the jokes never stop. Wow. Well, good for you. Good observation. You get some good picks you can shoot our way, or?
No, I did not.
All right. Well, hey, look, we got listeners coming in already. We're doing a little pre-gaming here. I got to thank you for introducing me to Mr. Connect. Mr. Kinetic, he is amazing. He is absolutely amazing. Dame, I was going to say we should get him on the show, but school's back in. So he's an assistant principal at a school. So I think he's busy right now.
You know what could possibly be going on that would be more important than this?
Have I told you that he's the discipline principal? So he's always talks about how he has to make those calls on Friday nights that are going to ruin kids' weekends. And he always feels bad, but he knows he's got to do it.
I would not like that job.
He's the best, man. He's such a good guy. All right, everybody. Dame's back. Today we're going to hit some stories. We've got a tax debt question, which is pretty interesting. There's some psychology behind that one. We're going to talk about stock splits because Apple announced a giant stock split, and it's pretty interesting. Then we'll dig around the email inbox and find some other things. Dame, I've been working out like a banshee the last few weeks, since actually June 28th, to be exact. I like data. Trying to get really good looking. So when this whole thing is over, people are like, whoa.
You're going to be that guy.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. We have a neighbor friend, and my wife and I, Mrs. Planner, were out on a walk, and we saw this guy and his wife walking around. He looked like Lou Ferrigno. He had gained probably 25 pounds of muscle. And I said hello to him with more respect than I had ever said hello to him with.
Are you telling me you think your neighbor's on the juice?
I don't know, but he looked good. Huh. He looked great. Anyway, you want to start the show?
Can we?
Yeah, of course. By the way, anyone watching on Facebook or YouTube, feel free to comment. We'll make you part of the show. But we are recording this week's live radio show. And by live, I mean it's recorded, so it's not actually live. All right, Dame, I'm going to start the show in 3, 2, 1. This week on the Pete the Planner Show, we answer your money questions. Here's how the show works. You email us, askpete@petetheplanner.com. That's askpete@petetheplanner.com. And when you do that, a few things can happen. Number one, I'll just ignore it. Number two, it could go to spam. Or number three, we could read your question on the air and answer it. When I say we, I don't mean the royal we. I mean Damian Dunn, no relation, coming to us from his steel box in northern Indiana. Hello, Dame.
Hey, Pete. Good to be back.
It is good to have you back. I do miss Gold Star Gail, as the President of the United States would say. A lot of great reviews. She got a lot of great reviews. But this time, it's true. So, Dame, what we're going to focus on today, we've got some tax debt questions. We've got an explanation of stock splits and why they're significant and why they matter once again. And some other fun and frivolity. So, Dame, let's get right to it. Dear Pete, my son-in-law did not pay taxes owed and now has a $10K debt to Uncle Sam. I realize that's not a huge number, but my daughter is terrified. I told her to go to the irs.gov website, and they can set up a payment plan online. It's probably the easiest way and the cheapest way to handle this. Next, who would be the best person to see to make sure they don't get in this mess again? A CFP, a CPA, a psychiatrist? LOL. I think that stands for lots of love. She is in a panic because she just found out about this. A marriage counselor might also help. Another LOL, even though I understand that this is a serious problem that they need to resolve now. Though it is not the end of the world, I try to emphasize this to her. Thanks, a concerned mother-in-law. Dang, man, there's a lot going on here in this very small email, because it's a very short email, but there's a lot going on. First off, anytime I hear someone say it's $10,000, it's not that much. It is always a lot to the people involved, though, isn't it?
$10,000 is going to sound like a lot of money to a bunch of people. In the grand scheme of things, maybe 10K is not that much to this couple or to this family unit as a bigger picture, but it's not something that most of us are just going to look at and say, it's inconsequential. Let me just get out my wallet and take care of that. So, yeah, $10,000 in the grand scheme of debt that you could owe to the IRS may not be that great. But for most of us individuals, that's something that we don't want to just kind of try and sweep under the rug.
So there's a lot of ways that a person can find themselves in this situation. And some of them are just really common. And it's not that I'm dismissive of how bad they are. I'm just trying to say, hey, these people aren't alone. A lot of people are in this spot. And in a weird way, a lot more people are going to be in this spot in the next 3 years because of the CARES Act and some legislation that makes getting into tax debt a little easier. But Dame, here's some possibilities. This person is their own employer. They're self-employed and they're not paying taxes as they go. That's very common. One of the more common ways that actually happens is through the real estate business. If you're a realtor and you don't set money aside, you're a 1099 employee, so to speak, then that can absolutely happen. Dame, another way this can happen is if someone had a 401k or retirement account that they liquidated prior to age 59 and a half, and they had a tax obligation there, and they just didn't set the money aside. And so that can happen. Dame, I think, of course, the bigger issue here is relationship communication. I don't know if a marriage counselor is necessary, but I certainly feel like these folks need to start communicating better.
Can I throw a log on the fire?
Oh, please do.
Did you catch the part where it says she just found out about this?
Oh, yeah. Well, but you know what? I don't think that's that unusual. I mean, we have stuff going on in our financial life, Mrs. Planner and I, that Mrs. Planner doesn't know about, but that doesn't necessarily make it bad. It just means we have different duties. Maybe this guy's duties is to deal with the financial stuff and he just does it poorly.
Could be. I'm not trying to insinuate that something nefarious is going on, but to get to your point, the communication needs to potentially increase in situations like this. I don't know if you've ever gotten a love letter from the IRS before, but they're not always prompt, or you could get one calling something into question from multiple years prior. So this could be something that it was an honest mistake. Could have been very easily an honest mistake. I'm leaning, I think, myself towards being a self-employed individual who something just got messed up in the taxes and they didn't send everything they were supposed to, and now there's maybe some extra penalty and tax and all that fun stuff that goes along with it, and now it's just got to get resolved. So is it a huge issue? Kinda. I mean, it's $10,000 to the government that they are expecting to see. So you need to have a plan set up to get it paid back. And as this thoughtful emailer says, it's pretty easy to get a payment plan set up, and it will be probably a little bit more reasonable than you anticipate, as long as you've still got some cash flow. So don't delay. Get out there, try and get it figured out, and don't wait any longer than you absolutely have to.
Yeah, my best bet here is that it is actually same self-employed person, but they just didn't set money aside. I don't think it was an oversight as much as it was a willful oversight. I do think there's no need to get a third party involved in terms of dealing with the debt. It is just easier to go to the IRS website, set up a payment plan. You can call them too, but Dame, here's the really tough part right now. This is an awful time to have a $10,000 tax debt to the IRS for two reasons. Number one, trying to communicate with them is going to be a nightmare because it's now late tax season and there's all the other garbage around stimulus checks and all of this. I'm not trying to be dismissive of stimulus checks. I'm just saying it's creating a lot of volume for IRS agents. And then the other thing, of course, Dame, not only is it hard to come up with $10,000 right now during the midst of a recession, but it's also hard to come up with a monthly dollar amount that will create the payment plan, the repayment plan. So Yeah, I think the financial solution here is easier than the broken trust, which may involve some candles to try to fix.
Potentially, or something sparkly maybe. Anyway, my my go-to advice usually for people in this circumstance who are kind of blindsided by something that happens with them in regards to the IRS, try and set up an appointment at a local IRS office and go in. Every time I have spoken with somebody who has done that, they've been amazed at the service and the quality of people that they meet there. Everybody has this image in their heads of IRS agents, being, you know, uncaring and very by the book. And if you are able to go in and see somebody face to face and plead your case a little bit, they are happy to try and work with something to get you in good standing with the IRS. So since that's not necessarily an option right now due to COVID, you're going to have to do your best with online and telephone options, which may take you a little while to get through. But again, that's no excuse not to get this handled. So that's where you go.
It's interesting. A lot of people love to hate on government agencies. They just like, oh, these people are terrible. They kind of aren't, everybody. I mean, so the Social Security Administration, the Social Security Office, those are literally some of the most helpful people that will ever serve you. So let's try to park some of those unwarranted criticisms to people. And look, if you want to take it a step further, Dame, you and I both know people are so unorganized when it comes to their finances that a lot of the fault people place blame on in terms of the Social Security Administration or the Internal Revenue Service is the fault of the caller because they have no idea what they're talking about. And so they just end up blaming the IRS or the Social Security Administration. So, yeah, I actually, this isn't really what we're talking about, but it is now. I feel really bad for people in the IRS right now for a lot of reasons, but they're getting calls from the most stressed out people. No one ever calls the IRS and is like, hey, just checking in. Everything good? How are the unicorns? Like, no one's ever happy when they call. They're frustrated. So, Dane, we got to take a break. I'm watching the clock here today. I don't want to get hung out to dry. Coming up after the break, we're talking stock splits. If this ever happens to you randomly and you didn't know it was about to happen, it's very exciting. And it happened to a lot of investors this past week. We'll tell you who. We'll tell you why. That's all next on the Pete the Planner Show. I'm that fella. Oh, look about how about that little hitting the post there, Dame?
Like you do this almost as a career.
At some point, I've got to quit claiming to be like a quasi amateur at this because it sort of lets me off the hook when I do mess up. Like the last few weeks when I had your echo going on Facebook, which was actually my fault.
No, you're not a professional producer.
That's a good point. Okay, I need a new recording, so I'm not going to hear you for a second, Dame. Okay, so give me a second here. Everybody on Facebook, question to you is, prior to our conversation today, do you have a negative perception of the IRS? Prior to our conversation today, this is our Facebook poll of the day. Do you have a negative perception of the IRS? Dame, I'm going to go ahead and answer my own question here. Getting a letter with that letterhead is the worst. Even if you just open it up and it's innocuous, right? It's nothing. It still gets your blood boiling. No?
It's never a good time when you open the mailbox and see a note with a return address of an IRS office somewhere. But man, you look at it and you open it up and you already know it's going to be difficult, very tough reading to get through, and so you're focused in on it already, and then you get to it and you're like, oh man, now I owe money on top of all this. So it's never. I hate getting letters from the IRS, even if they're just stupid letters that I end up throwing away.
Dame, I am hearing that your volume is low on Facebook. Are you getting that same feedback?
I just checked the comments and saw that I am a little bit low. So
do you know how to fix that?
I turned up my gain a little bit, so I'm hoping that fixes the issue.
All right, thanks. Someone just texted me. Oh, Frederick, thank you. Okay, so here we go. Yeah, Debbie, good point. She just expects them to be wrong, and we have to jump through hoops to fix it. They are what they are. That's true. Okay, next segment in 3, 2, 1. Back on the Pete the Planner show. Dame, this past week, major investors breaking from Wall Street, or probably Cupertino, where most of us think our weather is from time to time. Apple announced a big stock split, which means the high-priced investment went from a very high price to about $400 a share. What was the split? Was it 4-1, 3-1?
4-1.
4-1. So a stock split. Dame, why do companies take their stock, then cut it up, shrink the price, and then give people more shares of the stock at a lower price? Why do they do that?
The thought is that it's going to help make the stock a little bit more liquid and reachable for the average investor. So somebody who loves Apple products, in this case, could go out and buy part of the company through a stock purchase. That's a little less important nowadays because now we're able, at least in the US, we're able to buy fractional shares on a number of different platforms. So once upon a time, you had to buy stocks in lots, which were packages of 100, and it could get very prohibitive to buy a big chunk of stock if it was a very high price stock. You could potentially buy odd lots if you wanted to, but there was an additional fee that came along with that. Now, with the advent of Robinhood and all these other platforms that allow you to buy fractional shares, that's less of a deal. However, I read somewhere, and I can't remember the source or I would cite it, that there are countries that they still don't allow fractional share purchases. So this was possibly a nod to investors around the world who wanted to get in on Apple and make some money.
I don't want to say that you don't ever teach me things, because you teach me things quite often. But what you just said taught me something. I didn't know that was a fractional issue for international investors. And I also didn't consider the implication that this move was to entice investors around the world, because, again, domestically, not so much an issue. Apple has a history of doing this. They had a 7-1 stock split back in the day. I have to say, one of my favorite personal investing moments of all time, I always reference this, and so for those that listen to the show regularly will not be surprised here. In 7th grade, 6th grade, I bought one share of Philip Morris stock, which was, of course, a tobacco company. It's now called Altria. But I bought Philip Morris stock in 6th grade, one share, 7th grade, whatever, no one remembers. And within a few years, it split. It was a 3-1 split. So I think, and this is how I remember it, no one fact check me here, because I'm not claiming this is the truth, but I feel like I bought it at like $39 a share, $37 a share. It climbed to 100 and then split. So what an early, amazing lesson in investing, that you get a stock split. Now, Dame, I've also been on the other side of that, where the old reverse stock split, where you get fewer shares and they increase the value of those shares. It always equals out, right? If it's $1,000 a share on a regular stock split, maybe, and it's a 4-1 split, you end up with 4 shares valued at $250. But again, it feels like stock splits are increasingly rare. So it's interesting to see one of the most highly traded companies on Wall Street have a stock split once again.
Yeah, and you did touch on something that's really important there. If you do hold shares of Apple, you're not going to lose money through the split itself. Now, the price will fluctuate. There's nothing that anybody can do about that, short of Tim Cook and maybe his accountants. But as far as thinking that the split is going to lessen the overall value of what you have in Apple, that's not the case. You'll just have more shares that you'll be able to do whatever you want with, let it continue to grow or sell some of it, whatever you prefer. But that value is still going to be there. If you had $10,000 of Apple yesterday, you've got a little bit more today because the stock price went up. But you'll still have it after the split too. You'll just have more shares at a smaller per share price. So don't freak out about that.
Yeah, the other side of that too is their intended action has happened today, a renewed interest, a growth in the stock, because it gets people's attention. If you just are a headline reader and you see that the Apple stock split, then you're like, oh, well, now I can afford it. I'd like some. It must be good if people can now get more shares. It's up almost 7% as we record this show midday on Friday, the 31st. And so I know, Dame, you and I don't watch the market that closely. I mean, we're not exactly day traders and things, but we keep our nose to it every once in a while just to see what the people are talking about. So yeah, but do you think? How about this? And we're not. This is not. It is actually. It's amateur stock analysis time here on what's the name of the Pete the Planner show? I forgot the name of it. I really did. Okay. Do you think coming out of whatever we're all dealing with right now, the pandemic, the recession, the lockdown, shutdown, whatever, quarantine, whatever, choose your word. Do you think consumer stocks, consumer-based stocks like this are going to be the hotness for the next year, year and a half? Or do you think because people might have more sensibility and less discretionary income, they're not going to be able to make their normal purchases? What do you think, buddy?
I think that a lot of people are going to go for those well-known brand names if they choose to participate in the stock market, like they did the last time stimulus checks were pushed around. Um, I think there's a good argument to be made for a basket of consumer staples and I'm not talking about Staples the store or staples that you put on a stapler, but just things that we need on a day in, day out basis to make our lives happen. I think those types of purchases make sense because, as we've known, a lot of the discretionary stuff goes away, but there's still a core amount of things that we need to make our households work. So maybe stocks like Apple and the Facebooks and the Googles and all those things, maybe they continue to just absolutely crush it because our lives have been kind of consolidated into a digital world at this point. But I wouldn't forsake a lot of the core stuff that we take for granted going forward too. Altria, for example, people got to have their smokes.
People got to have their smokes, and of course, this is not a specific investment recommendation, but places like Amazon, people still get a lot of their household recommendations. Full disclosure, because we're a full disclosure organization, I own shares of Amazon. But Dame, Amazon does not have what I view to be the corporate culture that would ever do a stock split to be on the side of the everyday investor. They don't really care. I think they would much rather be the big dog with the high price stock. We stream this show live on Facebook as we record it midday on Fridays. Jameson, longtime listener, just noted they bought their son one share of Apple stock for Christmas in December of 2015. Cost was $116 for the share. Now he's about to have 4 shares and his gain is $248 so far. I wish I had bought some for myself. Wow. What? See, again, he's a young teen that's getting this investing experience. It's the exact same experience I had, except he's doing it with Apple and I did it with tobacco for your face.
I saw a tweet last night of a guy that said the $60,000 worth of Apple stock that I sold sometime in the 90s would now be worth 17 million, producing an annual dividend of 124K. And the responses were just, don't do this to yourself, man. Just let it go.
All right. So you know what? I want to touch on this when we get back. This idea of regret, because I was exchanging some messages with a friend this week, and he was really saying, should I lock in some of these gains? And then the question came down to, are you going to regret it more if you don't and things go down, or if you do and things go up? So coming up after the break, let's talk about that, because it gets to the essence of risk tolerance and taking profits appropriately. So we'll do that next. You can always join us live Fridays, noon Eastern on Facebook. Be part of the conversation. We love, the attention. I'm Pete the Planner. This is the show. All right. So let me load this up. All right, everybody. First stock, here's the Facebook action right now. First stock you ever owned. And if you've never owned a stock individually, that's okay too. And I'm not encouraging you that you should. I'm just curious if you happen to know the first stock you owned. So Dame, for me, obviously it's Philip Morris. And I think my second stock was Fifth Third Bank, I think. Do you happen to know your first individual stock holding?
I waited a long time before I started dabbling with individual stocks. So I can tell you that my first stock that I ever bought was Facebook.
Okay, hold on. I have to restart this segment here for radio. Oh, Anthem. Some people put Anthem here. That's a good one. That's all right.
Okay.
Radio Shack. Really?
Ooh.
Betty, you bought Radio Shack?
Oh, there's a story there with Betty.
There has to be.
I can clue you in on it offline.
Oh, you know the story?
Kinda. I yeah, I know why she would have bought it.
Jeez, okay. You know everything.
Nope.
Facebook was your first individual stock purchase.
I told you I waited a long time and I bought it at $42 a share.
Wow.
And I think I sold it around 70 because it was close to its target price at that point. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to just go by the advice that I tell everybody else that, you get out when you get to where you wanted to be. And of course it proceeded to just rocket past that price and never look back. And that's the one regret that I actually have still. And it feels dumb. And I have to keep reminding myself that you did really, really well on that trade. Don't think about it. And then I just keep getting reminded by it every time I look at my stocks app in my phone.
A few other people weighing in. Oz, our coworker, says she's never owned one, but would like to one day. Oz, we can talk after the show. Chuck says GM. Betty said she worked at Radio Shack. Mm-hmm. Next time I see Betty, I'm going to ask her if she has like an adapter to like a 1/4 inch. Radio Shack had the weirdest things in the world.
She worked at a store close to where I live.
Oh, we'll talk about that later. Caesars Entertainment. One of the first stocks I owned was also Sirius. Well, it wasn't one of the first, but it was a significant portion. Sirius Satellite Radio. During some stock crash, I bought thousands of shares at 20 cents and then sold them all at $4. So that did not suck, Dame. No. I have a question for one of our Facebook viewers. It's always so great about participating. I want to pronounce your name right, out of respect. Is it Danza or Danza? Danza or Danza? Danza as in Tony Danza, or is it Danza as in like Don Cornelius? Right? I don't know. I had to think of another way. So let us know, because we really appreciate your participation and we want to pronounce your name right. Dame, let's start the next segment, but let me actually find a question real quick. Oz sets these all up for us here. Oh, here's one. We'll see if this works. Okay.
Got your answer.
Like Tony Danza. I love it. You're the boss. Who's the boss? You're the boss. All right, Dame, let's get started. 3. I bet the person's never heard that. 3, 2, 1. Back on the Pete the Planner Show. Dame, I'm putting the $1 million question in front of you right now. I'm going to put the spotlight on you. This is all about you. Who is better to answer this question than you? Here it is. If you have $1 million and you've just gained 200,000 of those dollars in recent months, and you're like, wow, these are invested dollars. Are you more likely to lock in that gain, that $200,000 gain, by moving it to a more conservative investment and keep the $800,000 still rolling out of the fear that it'll go back down, but you've locked in that gain? Or are you more likely to let it ride? And this is all a bigger question as to, Dame, will you be more upset if you act and things get better, meaning you move it and the stock keeps climbing, or would you be more upset if you didn't act and the stock went down? Damian, Andrew, Dunn, Dad, the spotlight is on you.
I think a lot of it depends on what your time horizon is. If you're going to get your technical answer here, that's going to have a lot to do with it. If you anticipate on needing that money soon, lock it in, man, because you can rebalance that into other investments that can help you with that longevity. If you're young in the game and got a lot of time to go, I can see how you'd let it ride. Pete and I, you and I just talked about a similar situation that I experienced not that long ago with a a certain Instabook type of account or stock, I should say, and I made some money on it, and it continued to rocket right past its price. And I look at it every time and kind of kick myself, but I have to give myself some slack because I did all right. So that's the really interesting thing about this whole topic is that there's been research that shows that for every dollar that you gain to feel that same type of emotion on the downside, you only have to lose 50 cents. So if your stock portfolio doubles one year, you're feeling great. If it goes down by 50% the following year, you're going to feel that same level of emotion, probably more in my estimation, because we deal with wins pretty well. We may gloat about them a little bit, but man, when you make that loss, when you see that paper get a lot smaller, it hurts a lot more and sticks with you, and you start to fret and lose sleep. So what should you do? I think a lot of it depends on how much time you have until you actually need the cash. How's that for a cop out answer, Pete?
Yeah, you really, really bailed. You sold me out. I had this conversation with a friend who was in their 60s this past week, and I feel like it's gotten to the point where the person's losing sleep. I'm not telling the person to sell or do anything, but I'm clearly trying to help the person think through the situation. If it's starting to agitate you, you know, just and by the way, all it doesn't have to be on all or nothing thing, right? That's why I said move the 200 and not move the whole million. It's you can go in stages.
Yeah, and if you wanted to even just take part of the 200 to lock in some of those gains and still participate in the movement of the stock up or down, you certainly could do that. But like I said, I think a lot of it has to do with your overall goals and plan going forward, because what may be appropriate for a 30-year-old who just bought a ton of Apple 2 years ago might look entirely different for a 62-year-old who sees retirement over two hills.
Hi, Peter. We live in a small town 20 minutes south of Madison, Wisconsin, and the property taxes here are ridiculous with a capital R. I'm trying to determine if it's a sound financial strategy to pay off our mortgage early while our property taxes are a hefty portion of our mortgage payment. The value of our house is only 275,000 American dollars, but we're paying $7,000 a year in property taxes. Yikes.
Ooh.
I got to pause to react to that. Ugh. Our interest rate is 3%, and our remaining balance is around 165,000. We currently pay $1,500 a month. If we pay the mortgage off early, we still have to pay $583 a month in property taxes. In other words, we are only saving $800 to $850 from the mortgage itself. We still have to pay for insurance and taxes. $850 is not something to sneeze at, but it's really worth to pay off early. I know that other people say do not pay off early. Yeah, wow. This is fascinating because this is a problem that gets solved one of few ways, right? You could let the property appreciate and sell the property and make this someone else's problem, which isn't a terrible idea if you have no reason to think property taxes aren't going to get cut. Option two is the town people, the government, within the local municipality, that's where I was going with this, decides that the rates are too high and they lower them, which is unlikely in this environment. You're not going to see any property taxes go down. Or number three, you solve a future problem by making it a priority to pay off the mortgage over time prior to retirement. That way, it doesn't become a burden to your retirement income. Dane, what do you think is the most likely solution here?
All I know is you said town people, and I pictured people in Wisconsin with pitchforks and wheels of cheese standing outside City Hall, just being angry. What do I think the action here is? Paying off the mortgage, I think, shouldn't necessarily be considered in light of property taxes, because you're going to have those taxes one way or the other. And frankly, once the mortgage is gone, it's possible that your property taxes might go up a little bit because you might lose an exemption. I don't know if Wisconsin has one or not for a mortgage. So if you want to pay off your mortgage, go for it. I think you would appreciate the extra cash flow in your month-to-month financial life. And if you don't like the property taxes, well, make it somebody else's problem and sell the house and move to someplace a little less expensive, or just a cheaper house in the same town.
Anytime someone brings up paying off the mortgage, I'd like to make a clarifying point here. If you and I say, yeah, that makes sense, or potentially, for me, and I'll let you speak for yourself, I'm always thinking with your income on an increased pace over time. Never, if maybe once, never do I ever mean take a lump sum of money from savings, from retirement, from anywhere else, and use that giant chunk of money to pay down debt.
Yeah,
Ever.
chances are your money that you got elsewhere has purposes elsewhere. Your savings is an emergency fund. Don't use it to pay off the mortgage. If you got money in retirement, certainly don't use that to pay off the mortgage. If you've got extra cash flow, consider using that to pay off the mortgage, because the last thing you want to do is harm your future by taking or reallocating money that was intended for some other purpose to paying down your house.
All right, a couple minutes left in this segment. This made me think of just housing. I just saw a chipmunk run across the street, Dame. I have caught 26 chipmunks this summer, not one in a couple months. I even have a Chipmunk of the Year award on my desk, because when I catch the next one, it's going to win the Chipmunk of the Year award. I just got distracted while we we're doing a radio show. It's going all over the place, and now I'm regretful. Dame, property values could see some movement if we don't get an eviction moratorium, if we don't get a foreclosure moratorium as this recession goes on. Do you buy frankly, the Susie Orman argument that home ownership is bad right now because property values are going to fall across the board when people get kicked out of their houses? Do you buy that?
Not really. If you were buying your house for an investment, that probably wasn't the right reason to buy it in the first place. However, I just don't think it necessarily works that way. Just because a few houses might get foreclosed upon isn't going to have a huge effect that I think Susie is trying to portray here. Could it affect your property value? Yeah, potentially. We're not talking about a Detroit situation, though, where city blocks are just left vacant in this case either. So I wouldn't freak out about it. I'd just kind of ride it out.
Yeah, I think it's overblown. I mean, there's going to see in some neighborhoods and in some, cities, you're going to see some issues in terms of the number of evictions. I am anxious to see what the government chooses to do with the number of evictions coming in the next 6 months or so. But coming up after the break, the biggest waste of money of the week, and Damon, it's a good one, right here on the Pete the Planner Show. I'm Pete the Planner. All right, let me load this up, everyone. You're going to love the biggest waste of money of the week this week, everybody. I can just feel it.
We'll be the judge of that.
Okay, Dame. Okay. You might not like it. I got to reset some things here. Hold on.
I mean, you had an alarm last week.
What do people think on Facebook? Do you think property values across the board will fall within the next 6 months to a year based on the number of evictions and foreclosures that are coming? This is a slightly macabre question to ask, but I'm asking it anyway. Facebook peeps, do you think property values fall across the board due to evictions and foreclosures? A very uplifting question this week on a very special Pete the Planner show. Dame, I say it to you every time we talk about this. I am so glad I sold my rental property last year. Oh my God. I mean, I'd like to have the opportunity to extend some grace to someone who's really struggling and help them out and not put them on the street. But at the same time, I don't want that to become my problem. I think my big challenge with all this eviction moratorium stuff is it just basically says landlord can't kick people out. But what's the landlord supposed to do in terms of trying to pay their mortgage? There's no protection for them there.
Yeah. Did that rental stay a rental, or did it become a single family home? Do you know?
No, it's still a rental, and it's up for rent right now. Still,
really?
8 months later.
Nobody's been in it for 8 months?
No.
Oh my gosh.
I very rarely do I feel smart. In fact, as before the show, I updated some software in my computer and it said the update would be finished mid-show. Fortunately, that finished. So I'm usually a dumb man. But Dame, that's one of the most accidental, brilliant things I've ever done is get rid of that rental property before a global pandemic.
That was very very good on your part. Was
I'd rather.
was Mrs. Planner in on that, getting rid of the rental as well?
Oh God, yes. Yeah, it's. Well, I mean, I don't want to get. Yes, absolutely. Okay, let's get ready for biggest waste of money of the week here, everybody. No one look, because it's going to take me a second to get this right. Oh, no, don't look, anybody. Okay, here we go. All right, Dame. Let's start the next segment. Oh, it's so much going on. There's a lot of buttons you have to press in this job. And 3, shh. I just shushed you like an elementary school librarian. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to send you flowers. 3, 2, 1. This week's biggest waste of money of the week right here on the Pete the Planner Show is the BWOM, Dame. We call it the BWOM, the biggest waste of money of the week. And this week, the BWOM is, well, it's an ice maker, but a special ice maker. It's an aerospace aluminum ice ball maker. There's no shame in adding ice to your spirit of choice. And for most cocktails, it's essential. However, regular cubes melt quickly, turning that special drink into a watered-down mess. Ice balls provide a happy medium, and this handsome machine happily churns them out. It's made from black anodized aerospace-grade aluminum, which transfers the heat from the surrounding air to the ice. Combined with gravity, that means it goes from rough chunk to sleek 2.75-inch sphere quickly, a size well suited to most common glasses. Dame, what's your take? Oh, it's $300. This is $300, y'all. Shocking, no?
I don't even know where to start. So you must have to, okay, put the top on, and then there must be a little fill spout at the top, I'm guessing, and
yeah, but here's the thing. I love ice. And I like a good cold beverage. I like to drink my bourbon or rye slightly cooled, which makes me an amateur. But I don't know where I line up on balls.
There's just one of them too. It's
one ball.
It's one ball. So if you're drinking with friends, you can't share a ball with them.
For $300, you've got one ball.
Man, that seems a little stiff.
If you wanted to have a drink with a friend, you'd have to spend $600 so you can each have balls. Ice balls, $300. We have a giant cube maker. It's a silicone tray, and it's like the oversized cubes.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I think so.
And there's 6 in there, and I can have 6 squares with people. And it was probably like $10 for this thing.
But no balls.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't make balls, and that's the difference primarily. All right, Dame. This week's current events here. Did you notice that there is an article recently that a tax hike on California millionaires would create a 54% tax rate? That seems no bueno.
I can't imagine the people who would be subject to this tax rate are going to want to stick around in California to turn money over for it. 54% obviously is a marginal rate. It's not an effective rate. So that means the last dollar they make would be taxed at the 54%, or the last chunk of dollars they make at the 54%. Not that all of their income is 54%. But man, that seems prohibitive to wanting to live in a place that just shakes randomly in the middle of the night.
Democrats in California state legislature this week proposed that tax hike, and the plan follows proposals in New York State to raise taxes on the wealthy to pay for a widening budget deficit. Now, look, I realize there's not violins going off all over the country where people are playing sad songs for billionaires, but 54% of your earnings going to the government kind of stinks. If I'm being fair and honest here.
I mean, Another another podcaster, quasi famous, Joe Rogan, was located in California. He's already announced that he's moving to Texas for a number of reasons, but you can't tell me a huge deal with Spotify coming down the pipe, moving to a state that is much friendlier in taxes, doesn't make all the sense in the world for somebody like that. So the people who are going to be footing this bill are able to pick up stakes and leave whenever they want to. So I'm not sure it's going to have the effect that they're hoping.
Sadly, it's time for the part of the show where we have our weekly discussion about what's going to be in the next stimulus bill. The Congress packed it up on Thursday night to take a long weekend after weeks of recess. So now tens of millions of Americans who were getting enhanced unemployment assistance, well, it's run out. So they're going to go at least a week without that additional money. For some, they'll be okay because they set money aside. Others, their lifestyle before this all happened was significantly higher than what unemployment provides. And so they won't be able to pay their mortgage. They won't be able to make their car payments. They won't be able to put food on the table. But Dame, when Congress does get back to work, whenever those 72 hours of leisure is up, do you think they're going to end up with what the latest proposal I've seen from Republicans is $1,000 a person of direct stimulus payment, which of course is different than the unemployment aspect of this, $1,000 per person, which would mean a family of four gets $4,000, or do you think it'll go back to the $1,200 per adult and $500 per dependent?
I think for efficiency, I hope it's the $1,000 per family member up to four family members, because there's no qualifications on that. They just take a look at the tax returns, see how many people are covered under that, send it out. It's quick. There's no qualifications. Nobody gets left off. I think there are qualifications. The one I think was to have a valid U.S. Social Security number to get that next stimulus check. So I think it'll be way more efficient to make it happen, especially since we've already got the mechanism instituted with the IRS. So it should be pretty straightforward. And man, I hope there's just not very much debate on it. I hope it just comes back, gets stamped, and gets pushed out.
Did you teach me something else, or did you misspeak? Did you say up to four family members? So it caps at four people?
If I read the article correctly, I think it caps at four people per family.
Oh, man, that stinks. Again, if you've got, I know none of this can be perfect. I get so frustrated at this, not because they're getting it wrong, because they're trying to tape together a massive problem. And I get that. So I try to extend grace here, but a family of 6 or 7, which is not that uncommon, right? They've got a massive problem. And that extra $500 or $1,000 for those additional dependents really matters, especially if they're teenagers or young adults that eat up all the food and they need food.
If Congress called Pete on Sunday because they've got time on their hands,
yeah,
that's when people like to call you, Sunday. What would Pete do in this situation?
Oh, man, see, what an unfair question. What an unfair, awful person you are. Okay, here's what I would do. Oh, you jerk. I would do $1,200 per person, $500 per dependent, and I would change the income levels significantly. So they look like they're going to be the last time around, this last stipulations, where a single person, it's if you make $75,000 or below, you get the full $1,200. If you make up to $99,000, then it gets depleted a little bit, but you still get a payment. And for married people, you just double that. I would move it from 75 and 150 respectively to 200 and 400.
Oh.
That's not going to make a lot of friends. But the thing is, I know so many people who had 6-figure jobs that are not working right now, and their concerns, their needs are no less than someone who made half or a quarter of what they made. I know people love to get upset about people who make a lot of money and say, well, you should have saved it. Yeah, of course. Yeah, but it seems punitive to ignore people in that situation.
I may have misread the article. I'm skimming through it as you're talking, so I'm partially ignoring you.
Yeah.
Uh, but it does give an example that says a family of four could potentially receive $4,000, but it doesn't say that it's capped at four. So I may have misspoken.
Oh,
Fact checking myself.
whoa. You know what? I'm ending the show because that's inexcusable. We're ending the show
Okay.
just for
Gail,
the week.
everybody else, you'll have Gail or Kristen next week. Treat them well.
Sending you good vibes because good vibes are all that's in the budget. Thanks for listening to our little show here. We have fun. We hope you do too. Bye. Dame. That's okay. All right, everybody. And that's this week's show. We're so thankful for you. Dame, do you want to give like a message, at the end of, did you ever watch the Mr. T cartoon when you were a kid?
Yeah, sure.
You always had like a message, stay in school, eat your vegetables, drink your milk, like don't do drugs. He always had that sort of thing. Do you have a message for everybody today?
No.
Oh. I have a message, and here it is. The next couple of weeks are going to be hairy. I'm just telling you. And I wish I don't like to do predictions. And I say that all the time right before I do predictions or right after I do predictions. Be ready for what's coming financially in the next couple of weeks. I don't mean the stock market trouble or anything like that. I just mean the economy is going to get hairy again because there's going to be massive delay in the unemployment situation. Even if it's a week, it's going to stretch to 2 weeks now. And not that the stimulus checks won't matter because the stimulus checks are going to matter to a lot of people, but they're going to be delayed too. I mean, at this point, they're getting pushed into September. So be ready. I think it's going to get economically scary again. The market has done a really good job of dealing with some less than ideal news because it already had priced it in. We knew that the economy was going to shrink to an annualized number of 32 to 40%, and it did in the second quarter. We knew that consumer spending was going to go up in June again, like it did in May. And so it priced that in, but I don't know. Not to leave you on a bad note, but I think it's going to get a little hairy. I'm so uplifting.
Yeah. I'm glad you didn't lead with that. We would have had like 3 people watch.
Oh, what are you watching on Netflix right now, Dame?
Actually, we just purchased the Hulu Live package.
We have that.
So I'm watching quarantine baseball like it's going out of style right now.
Oh, yeah. NBA is back. I'm very excited. I feel like Adam Silver right now could write a book on leadership because he's continuously making the right decisions of not that basketball is all the all end all be all of what we need to solve this problem, but he had a mission in front of him to bring basketball back in a safe environment, created the bubble, and so far so good. It's worked brilliantly. And you look at baseball or what they're going to do in football, and it's a stark difference as to what he's done and what other people have done.
I think there are 6 games today that got postponed because of COVID issues with some of the teams that we're playing. It's kind of a mess, and we'll see if the season even finishes. But I'm going to enjoy it while it's here.
We just are caught up on Perry Mason, which is a show on HBO, and it's essentially the prequel to the television series, The Perry Mason, and how he became Perry Mason. It's got what's his name? Matthew Reese, I think his name is. He was the guy on The Americans that was married to Kerry Russell. Anyway, okay.
We watch some of the Smithsonian Channel. They have Aerial Americas where they basically take flyovers and talk through different features of states. And so if you like really pretty scenery and to learn just a little bit about maybe some of your neighbors geographically, I say check it out.
Dame now lists his age, just watches Aerial America on Smithsonian Channel. I didn't realize. Yeah,
it's amazing.
Well, next time I'm having some trouble sleeping, I'll turn it on. All right, Dame, you have a good weekend, buddy. I have a call in like 10 minutes, so I got to go.
Okay.
Bye, everybody. Bye, everybody. I waved. God, I can't stop waving at the end of Zoom calls and stuff.